Hey, what's up, everyone? Sam Shaw here, founder of Wall Street Mastermind. Excited to be back today with another client interview for you guys. And today I have Victor on with us, and excited to be talking to Victor. He just finished going through his summer 2022 recruiting process. Wait, sorry, actually, was it summer 20? This is for full time.
Yeah, full time.
My bad. Getting it mixed up. He just finished going through his full time 2022 recruiting process because obviously we're in October now, and was able to get a very successful outcome. And so, want to get him to come on here and just share his experience with you guys. And so, Victor, if you don't mind, first of all, thank you for being here with us today. But if you don't mind, just kind of kicking things off by introducing yourself real quick so people know who they're kind of hearing from.
Yeah, happy to talk with you, Sam, and thanks for letting me be here. Yeah, so I'm rising senior right now. I'm an econ major. I go to a pretty solid school in the Midwest. I grew up in the Southwest, and I guess talking a little bit more about my recruiting experience. Beforehand, when it was before Wall Street Mastermind, of course. I was interested in becoming a banker, but didn't like fully commit to it. I think, I was a little bit wishy-washy because I didn't really understand the recruiting process that well. I think although I go to a pretty good school, my school per se doesn't have the best recruiting program or efforts. It's really based on the individuals. So I found that to be pretty hard. I think starting off, I did some work myself. Of course I did a little bit of networking, emailing. I had all the PDFs of like the guides of different questions and whatnot, but just felt like it was a lot to take in, and I didn't really know how to go about it. I think even just after reading that and trying it out myself. But I think like what really led me to the program was actually one of the clients in the program itself recommended it to me, another student who went to my school, and she said it was a great program, that it would really help me, especially being that I was pretty late to the game, like because I didn't commit early on. I think I was under a little more pressure. So, I've realized this program would be especially helpful for someone like me, who's nearing the end of their third year, need to find a full-time offer. This was really important to me. So I thought it's either now or never. I think if you start out a lot earlier, like sophomore year, you might be able to make it through yourself. But I think for this program, it's really helpful for guys like me who are really looking for that full-time recruiting process, because that is significantly tougher, I would say.
I guess I have a question for you, because I think you joined at like the very end of 2020. It was literally like, I don't know, it was like December 28th or something. So it was like, I remember it. And so at that point, that was like the first half of your junior year had just ended, right? And you were going into the second half of your junior year. You sound like you had been recruiting for banking on your own up to that point, right? Using the guides, using probably the typical resources that most people have access to and are already using, right? 400 questions guide, breaking Wall Street, so on and so forth, right? Did you already have a junior summer internship lined up when you came to Wall Street Mastermind, or were you still looking for the junior summer internship?
So I did have a junior summer internship lined up for like a regional boutique. So not like, my first choice, of course, but yeah, I did do some recruiting before I joined in like, early of 2021. I was pretty late to the game. I think I started recruiting like August of like 2019, like, September, like around that area. So that's kind of, when I got my offer for the regional boutique.
2019 or 2020?
Or 2020, my bad.
Yeah. So you started recruiting basically at the beginning of your junior year, basically.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Beginning of the junior year. Yeah.
Got it. This is what you were alluding to earlier, which is you didn't commit to banking early on. And just like a lot of students out there, like people always get caught off guard by how early investment banking recruiting starts, right? Like, and it's not anyone's. I never blame the students, but it's kind of crazy to think that you're supposed to be ready to recruit like halfway through your sophomore year, because most people think like, hey, college is 4 years, and I could probably wait until my last year in school to start thinking about jobs. And that is the case for most of the other industries, but just not for banking, right? And so for other people like you, and I know for a fact we're going to get a lot of people who are going to listen to this episode and be like, oh my God, I'm exactly where this guy was, which is like, they maybe don't realize they want to do banking until junior year, which like still sounds really early, but like by August, September, junior year, you now know it's like all the bulge bracket and elite boutique banks are pretty much done hiring, right? And then at that point, you're looking at either like middle market or regional boutique banks. But if that's when you start preparing, then obviously like the preparation process that takes lead time too, right? And then you have to network with these bankers and whatnot. And so like by the time you're truly ready, it sounds like you maybe got the regional boutique offer what around like towards the end of 2020, maybe like right before you joined Wall Street Mastermind.
Well, I actually got it like I think September. But it was being that it was a regional boutique, there wasn't much prep needed.
Got
So that was a nice, I guess, part of it. But yeah, I think you're right. Definitely starting later, it's tougher, and you have to prepare, like especially for the better middle markets that will ask tougher questions as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you got into this regional boutique. Obviously, not your first choice, but at least you had something. And then
Mhm.
like at that point, like what made you want to join something like Wall Street Mastermind? Because I mean, obviously, it sounds like you knew right away that you want to recruit again for full time, but why not just go through the full time recruiting process on your own? You know, like because that's what I think a lot of people would like. That's what their reaction would be. Is like, okay, now let me try to like go through this full time process and figure everything out on my own. Like, what made you decide to kind of go this different route?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, told me as well, like, okay, now you should go after full-time recruiting on your own, do all the important things like networking and, really know those guides really well. But I just felt like, at least for me, like I just didn't know what exactly was the correct process. Like people would tell me to do certain things, but, I felt like I would rather go through something that was a little bit more rigorous in terms of like its explanation. I think like for me as a student, like, I'm used to like specific classes, and it's kind of nice that, there is something like Wall Street Mastermind that kind of really walks you through what you need to do. And like, of course, I did a little bit like, I changed it up a little bit and kind of found my own like correct method, at least what method worked best for me, as I was recruiting. But I think definitely what really helped was just, or what really pushed me to join was one, somebody recommending it to me who was a friend of mine. And also just the fact that I honestly think, it looked like is a very comprehensive course, and everything I need to know is just at one place. And there wasn't like me like begging people to ask, like, what do I put in my emails for networking? What kind of questions do I need to know? Like, it's not comprehensive. You have to find a lot of different sources, put it together, and then you might be kind of ready. But for your class, it has everything really.
Right, right. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess obviously you had the luxury of knowing someone who has already personally gone through the program and can vouch for it. And because obviously, as we all know, there are a lot of programs online that are, for lack of a better word, like total garbage, right?
Mhm.
And so I think people are naturally very skeptical. And so obviously, it always helps if you actually know someone who's gone through the program and can tell you that it's good. So that's great. But also to your point, it sounds like obviously a lot of people out there can tell you what to do, right? Like people will say, "Oh yeah, you just need to network," or "Yeah, you just need to learn the technicals," or make sure you have good stories. Like I'm sure people told you all of that, but there's like
Mhm.
people telling you what to do, and then there's people that actually tell you how to do it, right? And telling you how to do it unfortunately takes a lot more time and a lot more involvement than just telling you like, oh, just go do X, Y, and Z, right? Because like, I feel like most people are in the first camp of like, yeah, just go network, learn your technicals, make sure your behavior is good, and it's like, okay, yeah, I know I need to do that, but like, are you gonna teach me how to do it, right? And the what and the how is two totally different things, right? Would you agree with that? And it sounds like you were looking for someone to not just tell you what to do, but it's like, how do I actually do it? Almost like having a process or a framework that you can follow. And then of course, like you say, you have to tweak it along the way and kind of make it your own because every candidate is different. But at least you have like a starting point that you know, like, okay, these are the best practices, as opposed to like trying to guess at what you need to be doing. Is that kind of like your mindset?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, especially because my school isn't as focused on recruiting, like I felt like, I explored the different resources on campus and whatnot. Maybe there's a few clubs on campus that kind of have something that's a little bit more specific on how do you go through this process.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at some schools they're more pre-professional, they have those kind of things. But I think for someone who doesn't go to a place or isn't part of a program already that, really walks you through it, especially for someone who's like pretty young and just starting off and not really knowing a lot about finance. I definitely think this program is a really good one.
Yeah. I think also for you, because you realize you want to do banking so late, like a lot of these pre-professional clubs, they usually only take freshmen and sophomores. Like they don't really take juniors and seniors, right? Because
Right.
at least that's what I found to be true. Because also, um, the pre-professional clubs, they only want to take like quote unquote the best candidates or like the people that are going to be the most likely to get the best jobs because the more members who get great jobs, the more marketable that is for their own club and the more prestigious their club becomes on campus, I guess, right? And it's a lot
Exactly.
easier to help someone break in to banking if you can start helping them as a freshman or a sophomore versus like if you come as a junior and junior summer internship recruiting is already over and like they're just not inclined to take people with that type of profile. So it's like if you're one of those people that started late in the process, even though those clubs are there, like it's probably not really truly accessible to you anyway, right? And so you're gonna have to go and figure out.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to go and figure out another way to kind of get that same competitive advantage that maybe these other students have that you don't have, right? Just like even the playing field a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I felt like, especially at that time, like, now of course I feel a lot better, but there's a lot of pressure at that moment because nobody is really able to help you except for, a place like Wall Street Mastermind or you have to do your own research. And also just the fact that, it is a very, you know, like tough process already, but full time is even tougher. A lot of people will tell you that, you know, better to just take the offer that you can get and then lateral recruit or, that because full time I think is probably one of the toughest, if not the toughest, like recruiting process for banking, just because you're getting the leftover spots. So I think, yeah, you're right. I needed a different competitive advantage. And a lot of people, they even said that, I wouldn't be able to make it as well. So, I definitely think there is something that kind of pushed me to, sign up for a class like this.
When you say like a lot of people told you you wouldn't be able to make it, can you elaborate on that a little bit? Like, who's a lot of people, and why did they say you couldn't make it? Just because I wanna kind of
Yeah.
like zero in on this a little bit, just because I feel like a lot of people experience that where they get other people telling them they can't do something, right? And so I'm curious, like, what was that?
Yeah.
What was that for you?
No, yeah, to get even, a little more personal, like, my family, even friends of mine. I mean, my family's a little bit more clear cut, of course. My friends will be like, you do your best, but, maybe it's better to look for lateral recruiting or, it's never too late. But my family was pretty straight up, like, yeah, it's not looking good, just because my sister was a banker as well, in a middle market bank, and so she wasn't that helpful, but was quite busy, doing her own recruiting process, I guess, for like corp dev and PE. So, but I will say this, that I think a lot of times in life when you get into a tough position where it's a little bit more difficult, you will get a lot of people around you who are like, yeah, it is unlikely that you're going to make it. But I think I just was willing to take the risk and push through. And I found a place like Wall Street Mastermind that could kind of give me that extra edge. So I did that.
Mm. That's man, that's an amazing, not amazing, but that's like, I'm glad we touched on that because I think so many people probably have experienced exactly that, which is even your family members or your friends, like these are people who I have no doubt they genuinely care about you and they want what's the best for you. But sometimes people just have like limiting beliefs, not because they're trying to like screw you over, but like, for example, your sister probably has never seen anyone who was in your situation. Like she doesn't personally know anyone who's in your situation with your profile who has been able to do what you were trying to accomplish, right? And so she's not lying to you, but that's just her view of the world based on her experience. Doesn't mean she's wrong, right? But I think a lot of people, it's like, look, if your family and your friends tell you something, then there's not going to be anyone that's more credible than that, right? Especially like I'm just putting myself in your shoes. Like, okay, my sister is in banking. She actually did the thing that I'm trying to do now, and she's telling me that it's probably not going to happen. So it's probably not going to happen. And like, why would my sister like steer me wrong, right? But the thing that I want people to know is just like, look, just because someone tells you something, and even if they have the best intentions, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're right, right? Because if you have spoken to a different person, like if you have spoken to someone on our team, for example, we have so many students that have overcome really, really just crazy odds. Like people that go to non-target schools, people that have low GPAs, people that start the process really late. Like a lot of our students have experienced the same thing that you've experienced, which is they've been told by certain people that they couldn't do this. And then they went out and did it, right? But it's like, imagine if you just bought into other people's limiting beliefs. And because of that, you didn't go out and get the help you needed or learn the things you had to learn to make this happen, then like how different would your life be, right? Or how different would your career turn out to be? Because I always tell people this, like at the end of the day, you can obviously like take advice from people, but ultimately it's your career, right? Meaning at the end of the day, whatever happens for your career, you're the only person who's gonna have to basically deal with the consequences of that, for better or for worse, right? And so I always encourage everyone to like take ownership of your career and like just own whatever decisions you make, whether it's to get help or not to get help, whether it is to go all in and try to, accomplish the goal that you're trying to accomplish, however far-fetched it might seem, or to just, give up. Like whatever decision you make though, like make sure that it's a decision that you made, not a decision that other people told you to make, because that's when you start to kind of regret things, or like, oh, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda. I didn't do it because this person said X, Y, Z. But what if I had? Would I be in a different place today? Right? Like I see so many older people who are like closer to my age who have those types of regrets, right? And it's just like life's too short for that. So I'm really glad that you even though you had people telling you that this wasn't going to be likely or this wasn't possible, that you didn't really give up, and instead you went out and still try to do something about it. So that's a testament to just your character and the type of person you are, man. But so let's talk a little bit then about you coming into Wall Street Mastermind. Then like, so we understand why you did it, right? So then after you came into Wall Street Mastermind, like I said, it was about halfway through junior year, right? Now you're a rising senior, and so I think it's been about 9 months ish. You spent about 9 months in the program before you secured your full time offer. So like, talk to us about those 9 months. Like, what was that like? Like, how did your preparation process change, or how was it different from what you did on your own prior to Wall Street Mastermind? And like, because people always want to know is like, what's so different? Like, what did you do anything that you couldn't have done on your own? Like, can you kind of just shed some light on that?
I mean, yeah, I can definitely talk about that. I mean, one, I would say, you have a really responsive network, for a lot of kids like me who don't necessarily, have that finance like, connection, or, don't really come from that area, or, maybe whose family doesn't really, want to help or know how to help. I think it's nice to have someone like you respond like on the daily, like even just like an hour after, or right after as well. But also just, the whole group was really, really helpful. Um, but I would say, yeah, in terms of my 9 months, I can kind of walk you through how it went. Definitely very long, very grueling, but it would have been a lot worse without this program, to be quite honest. Um, I started off just doing, just the modules, like, reworking my resume, I think was the first thing that was really good. Cleaned up a lot of like the basics, like my resume, my story, my behaviorals. And I think like it was nice that, I got a framework and I could like play around with it, because like otherwise I would just be kind of reading like those PDFs and like coming up with stuff, but like not being able to like actually test it out. Like you gave me a mock interview, and that helped me a lot, because like my first interview would have been like that mock interview, which was pretty bad. So really great experience. I think like, you guys are always offering, or, able to offer help. And I think that's something that you're not going to get anywhere else. I think that was really helpful. Um, I guess like starting off, like in the beginning, like I said, I did the resume. I did some like initial networking, even if it was a little bit early for full time, just to kind of get my name out there and practice. I think that was the most helpful part, was just practicing networking, learning how to have a conversation with the banker, knowing what the good questions are. And then as I got closer to the summer, I ramped up a little bit more, started networking quite a lot harder. And that's when, opportunities actually start to hit me. And that's, thankfully I was ready because of, Wall Street Mastermind. Like, although to be honest, the first, couple interviews were still pretty tough. Because I think full time is just a different beast. Like your program was really great base. I think like summer analyst, and for most full time positions, like you're going to be able to get through that process. But I think for full time, they just get a little more creative with the technicals. And so it's actually really important that you understand everything within like the basics of technicals, which you have in the program, and then kind of maybe do some outside research so you can get just a little bit farther. But yeah, that's a little bit of kind of how my summer went.
Yeah. So like, that all sounds very logical, but I guess like, what's the difference between what you just described and what you would have done on your own? Because what I heard was, you cleaned up your resume, you, worked on your behavior answers and stories, you learned how to network, and you learned the technical concepts that you needed to learn, right? So you worked on all the right things, obviously, but can't you just do those things on your own? Like, what's the big deal, I guess?
I mean, one, I think it's, I think what's really helpful is that it's like all organized in one place.
Mhm.
You could do it on your own, but you're going to spend a lot of time. Like I did it myself, even in the program, just searching up like different, resources and looking through like what is out there. And it is not easy to find something so organized clearly in terms of what you need to know for interviews. Like you can search up like accretion dilution problems, but you're going to get things that aren't necessarily going to be asked for investment banking interviews, and you have like actual examples of like real questions in interviews, and I've gotten questions that are pretty similar to the ones that you have as well. And also just the fact that, you know, being that I feel like you could try to go through it yourself. Of course, all the things I mentioned, are important, but I think like really what really helped is just that support system. Because like whenever I had a question, I it would feel a little like bothersome for me to reach out to my friends at like midnight or like 1 a.m. and ask them like, I don't know about this like networking thing, like can you help me out? And I've done that. I've reached out to even my family and friends, and you can tell it's a little bit it gets bothersome for them. And I think with you, like you're always free to help and you're always free to respond, and you're really helpful as well. And you don't, you obviously you're not bothered by it because that's your job. So it just made me it made me get into the process more. I think you can't really get into the process until you have someone who has a kind of supports you and you're in like a team, if that's, if that makes sense.
I think especially for someone like you, like a lot of people say like, dude, your sister's in banking. Like, can you just get your sister to help you? And to your point, it's like, yes, there are of course other people that can help you, but like everyone's busy, dude. Like, I think you're rarely ever going to find someone who tells you they're not busy. Now, I don't know anyone like that anyway, unless they're just like a total bum and they just like, I don't know, don't do anything. In which case, they're probably not very successful, right? But like, if the people that you get help from, one, they have to be qualified to help you, right? Meaning they actually know how to do the thing that you're trying to do. But then two, they have to be like invested enough in your outcome to help you, right? And most people are just not that invested in other people's outcomes because why should they be, right? Like, yes, your friends wish you well, yes, your family wishes you well, and they want to see you do well, but they want to see themselves do well even more, and they're so busy just like living their life recruiting for their own jobs in your sister's case, or or like even friends that have already gone through recruiting on their own, the last thing they want to do is to go through recruiting again with you, right? And so it's like you said, you become this almost like a burden for other people when nobody likes being that guy that's just like every 5 minutes or every single day is just like, oh, I have this other question, oh, can I ask you one more question, oh, can I ask you one more question? And it's like, but that's just how recruiting is. It's like you constantly have questions popping up left and right because you're going through it for the first time and there's all these different situations. And so it's just hard. It's just hard to find someone who has no skin in your game to spend the amount of time that you would realistically need them to spend with you, right?
Yeah.
Versus for us, like you said, it's like this is our job. Like we don't care how many questions you ask us. That's the biggest thing with our program is like we don't limit how often you can ask us questions. We don't like limit how long you can work with us. It's just like we'll help you as much as you need, as often as you need, from the time you start working with us until you get the job, right? And for some people, like for you, maybe that's 9 months. For some people, maybe it's 3 months. For some people, it's like 2 years. Like people that start working with us like freshman year, like it might take a really really long time, right? But it doesn't matter. It's like we don't care. And the reason why we're invested in your outcome is because guess what? If you get a job, you're gonna be like your friend who told you about our program. You're probably gonna go out and tell other friends about our program, and that's how we benefit from it. Versus if we don't get you a job, you're probably also going to go out and tell your other friends that Wall Street Mastermind is a program that doesn't work, right? And so it's like that's how you align the incentives. It's like we do well when our students do well, and we don't do well if our students don't do well, right? And that's why we're so invested. That's why we're so responsive. That's why we're like doing everything we can to help you be successful. It's not because we're like saints or something. We're just human beings. We're trying to do well ourselves, right? And so if you can find someone who's going to be qualified and knowledgeable about the subject matter that you're trying to become good at, and you align incentives where they're investing your outcome, then usually that's like the best help you're going to get, right? And that's exactly what we
Yeah,
provide here in Wall Street Mastermind. Um,
yeah,
so that'll make
and
a ton of
especially
sense.
for
Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, oh yeah, and I just want to add, like, I think especially for those who are full-time recruiting, like you mentioned, nobody really knows that process that well. Like nobody saw anyone in a position like mine. Like I've asked around, like it's very hard to go from a regional boutique to like bulge bracket, and like you guys had that. It's happened to you many times. So like
Yeah.
I think with that expertise, that's like a really big piece of, oh, like I want to join this program. Like people just like me have been in it and made it out.
Yeah, to your point, like, and you alluded to this earlier, full-time recruiting, you're kind of fighting for the leftover spots, right? Because these bulge bracket banks, what they do is they give most of their offers, I would probably say like 80 to 90% of the offers go to their own summer interns, right? And then if there's still any offers left because maybe an intern didn't accept their offer, or maybe they had a class that like performed below average and they gave out fewer offers, okay, usually like certain groups, not even every group, certain groups within these banks might have like one or two spots by the end of summer. And then they go out and try to fill those. But even when they go and try to fill those, they're like, you're still competing against a lot of other students that probably worked at a bigger or quote unquote better bank than the one that you worked at, right? Like you worked at a regional boutique bank, but there are probably other people that worked at middle market banks. There are probably even people that worked at bulge bracket banks. But even within bulge bracket banks, there's like, you know, the better ones and kind of like the lower tiered ones, right? And so it's just like the competition is fierce, and I mean it's not unusual to see groups interview like 50 people for the first round and then bring back like 10 of them for super day and then give out like one job, right? Like because I went through full-time recruiting myself back in '08, and so I know exactly how that is. Like those are the numbers, right? And um so it's just like it's to go from a regional boutique and skip a couple levels and go up to the bulge bracket bank is like it's not easy to do at all. And like you said, if anything, it's harder than probably summer internship recruiting, right? And I guess that's like a good segue though into like uh, I think I just have like two more questions for you. One is obviously like, what was the outcome for you in the end at the end of this 9 month process? Like, how many offers did you get, and like, what was the offer? Let's start with that actually.
Yeah, yeah. So, first I got my return offer for my regional boutique,
Yeah.
and then kept recruiting. um, Received Wells Fargo middle market bank offer a couple months later, which I think was like probably September.
Yeah.
And then didn't really recruit as hard, but thought I would kind of leverage that offer, see if I can get anywhere with any other banks. So any other banks that I had a couple processes with, and ended up getting Bank of America as an offer, and those were the only offers that I got. But went through a lot of different interviews with the top firms as well. But yeah, those were kind of the results.
Cool. So you got a middle market offer, and then you got a bulge bracket offer, which obviously Bank of America. That's a great bank. That's, I would say, like a top five, probably top five bulge bracket bank. So, how do you feel about that outcome? Like, was that like kind of what you expected coming in, or was it, did it exceed your expectations, or are you happy with it? Are you, just like what what do you? How did you feel after you got it? I guess.
I was, to be honest, I was in shock. It's been 9 months, and although you can learn as much as you can, and you go through the process, you network, you do everything right. I think it doesn't end up well. Like you mentioned, it is just significantly harder because you don't have any information on what spots are open. And honestly, I was really happy with just the middle market offer. But I got lucky and I was ready as well. It's a combination of just the luck of the world, but being ready for that super day and that interview from BOFA, which was not easy. Contrary to belief, they do ask a lot of technicals, and you have to be ready. And it even gets group specific, which you helped me as well. So the energy group, like I would say, I was super happy to get the call, so excited, really, really in shock, but happy that I went through everything and got it at the end.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's awesome. So I guess let's wrap up on this. Do you have like one piece of advice for our listeners who are like maybe just starting to go through the process now, or like maybe they're like you, they were late to the recruiting game. Maybe they didn't realize until junior year. Maybe they couldn't get into like the best summer internship that they wanted to, and now they're gonna have to recruit them for full time. Like, is there one piece of advice that maybe someone gave you along the way that just really helped you tremendously and that you can maybe like pass on to other people?
Yeah, I think, something that my friend told me who, recommended me to do the program was like, just don't give up, no matter what your friends say, no matter what even bankers say or people who know the business, it is really never too late. And I honestly, like, I know a lot of people say that, and, it's like, yeah, of course you're supposed to say that, but I honestly believe it, and I'm proof that it works. And I would say just give it a chance. I know the program, you don't know much about it in the beginning. I know it might be a little bit, you might think it's expensive, but I honestly thought it was really worth it at the end. And you won't know until you try it. I think, just give it a chance, do what, you think you feel like you want to do. If you really want to be a banker and you want to do anything you can do to be a banker, then I think this program is for you. And that's the only, opinion that you should care about, I would say.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's can't end this interview any better than that, to be honest. So, guys, if you're still listening to this, and maybe you find yourself in a similar situation where you were late to the game, you got caught off guard by how early everything happens, which again is not your fault. It happens to a lot of people. Maybe you have people around you telling you, like, just lower your standards or settle for something that's less than what you really want. Like it's probably not likely or not possible that you're going to be able to get to where you go. Look, those people aren't trying to hurt you. They don't have bad intentions, but they might not be correct, right? Like they're just telling you what they believe to be true, right? You need to find, you can certainly find examples of where people have done exactly what you are trying to do right now, right? Victor being a perfect example of that. Like he's done what you're trying to do right now. And so it can be done. So it's like if Victor could do it, why not you? Right. And so I'll just encourage you, like, don't give up, keep going, get the help you need, whether that's from, people that you already know, people around you, or from something like Wall Street Mastermind. And look, if you want help from something like Wall Street Mastermind, then what I would encourage you to do is first reach out to us. In fact, what we're letting people do now is you can actually reach out. And before you even talk to our team, you can schedule a call with one of our alumni that has already gone through the program and has successfully gotten a job. And when we call it like a virtual coffee chat, it's just like networking with any other upperclassman who has already gotten into banking, right? You can ask them for advice on recruiting. You can ask them whatever you want. You can ask them about Wall Street Mastermind, right? And if after you speak to one of our alums and you feel like you still want to talk to us and you still want to learn more about the program, then our alum can easily introduce you to us and set you up to talk to our team. But maybe you don't want to do that after you talk to them, and that's totally fine too. Then you don't have to, right? But you got nothing to lose, a free networking opportunity. If you want to take us up on that offer, you can go to www.wallstreetmastermind.com/apply. It's streets abbreviated to ST. So it's wallstmastermind.com/apply and book this free virtual coffee chat. We look forward to talking to you. And then hopefully, if all works out, eventually helping you get a similar outcome as Victor as well. All right. So, guys, we're going to wrap it up here. That's going to be it for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you guys, and we will talk to you guys soon. All right. Bye.
Thank you.